something like the jungle instead. But actually with the looks like with the speed that this Zeri offers, they're not really comfortable enough to say, hey, we can hit the skill shots. We're going to go for the point and click instead.
The point and click, that Zeri will do so much damage to those range, that's the word I was looking for, team fights. So we'll see what they're able to build around that. And again, we're seeing the Nautilus come out here for xiaolaohu. Has the option to maybe go for the thresh, but decides it's just not good enough into the Zeri. Needs something with a little bit more punch.
Yeah, it's about trying to lock her up in the lane phase. There's another point and click CC you can add to the equation to try and make sure that you're able to keep this Zeri in check. This Ryze has become really high priority in this series. We've seen it pretty much every single time, but we'll have to see if it can have that same impact as we saw in game number 1. Coming across though, Jayce has been left open. xiaolaohu actually going to take that straight off the bat. So, going to get himself into a nice matchup in that top side. Zeri's not really played a lot of champions that can really punish with Jayce in the top side, although we have seen him bring out the Wukong in the past. And when we talk about Ultra Prime playing for these big team fights, maybe that's a decision that Ultra Prime want to go.
I will say, yes, the Ryze is a lot of priority for both these teams. Ryze is a 100% loss rate so far in this series, and whoever has it has not been able to win off of it. So we'll see what way this one works in the last few picks coming in on the first round. As now FPX, honestly, I was going to say I would not be surprised to see them pick up their jungler. The Zhao has been left open, one of the strongest junglers, if not the strongest after the Lee Sin, in my opinion, and just a very good all-round pick for when you're trying to go for those big objective fights.
There's the Jinx though on the opposite side. Ultra Prime, I think you just banned engage supports here, right? Like get rid of Leona, Rakan. Then what really sets up the fight for FPX? Because yes, they can go back towards an enchanter for the Zeri if they want to, but that doesn't really do very much for you in the grand scheme of things. And when you've got the decent amount of range with the Jinx, you got the ability to play side lanes with the Ryze, ZS even with the potential to go for the counter pick in that top lane with the Wukong, like you can actually end up in a really good spot here as Ultra Prime.
Yeah, the LeBlanc going to be banned away, so they recognize that Cryin had a pretty good time on the LeBlanc against the Ryze, but now we're starting to see a couple more bans come in. The Malphite going to be banned away here from ZS, so maybe taking away a couple of the tank options. Honestly, it wouldn't be a bad idea, maybe if they're really scared for those tank options available, to ban away the Ornn as well and just force them onto a carry.
Yeah, it's not so much the tank, it's just counter to xiaolaohu, right? Like the Jayce just can push the Malphite out of lane a little bit, but when you get to the later portion of the game, literally just press or at the Jayce and he's dead. Especially if you've got like a strong jungler there for hackers. So maybe we actually do see the Wukong bang here as well if FPX are going full that stall. But again, I feel like Ultra Prime could have banned away the supports, right? Like not the Yuumi, the engage ones, because you've already got Klee who's already been picked up. Gori, unless he goes for something like the Vex in the mid lane, which isn't the best of matchups into the Ryze, doesn't really have engaged champions in the mid lane, and suddenly Zeri becomes relatively useless because she doesn't really have any way to get into these fights because no one's locked up to deal her damage at short range.
Well, the Hecarim going to be respected here by the side of FPX, so they banned that one away. Not the most highest priority I would have personally put onto it, but you got to adapt to the meta of your series, let alone the meta of the entire game. And now we see the Wukong that you mentioned earlier. Yeah, locked and loaded here for ZS. Very soft counter to the Jayce that can do very, very well in those early stages and then work to become that big hard engage later on in the team fights.
And I think you try and go for something like the Jarvan here for Hacker to make sure that he's going to be safe. But as we were talking about, right, you need engage in FPX. Leona hovered here for Hong. I'm still baffled that Ultra Prime didn't try and take this away. So, not to see what the plan is going to be. Gori now trying to go for the Orianna, which at least here would give like a little bit of control and zone control in these fights, which I think is going to be desperately needed because everyone on Ultra Prime is going to be trying to follow up on the Wukong ultimate. So if you can actually have a good spot to have this ball in, it can make it very difficult for people like L to actually follow up because they've got to run over the Orianna ball and the potential Orianna ult to try and get onto these fights.
Will FPX be balling? That is the question as we come into this one here, as Ultra Prime now know exactly what they're going into. They will have their jungler last pick, so Hacker has himself an opportunity. Still plenty on the board. The only thing that was really banned was the Lee Sin in terms of higher priorities, the Hecarim as well, of course, but going into the Zhao, I was just going to mention that Trundle is a fantastic pick to stop those early skirmishes and to get yourself into a nice, decent position at that mid game. It works very well at just setting yourself up for your team. We'll see what Ultra Prime want to go for. Still plenty of options available to them. They land on the Jarvan. Good engage available to them. Good way of following up with the Wukong and Nautilus. And honestly, just a good front-to-back team fight available now for Ultra Prime.
Yeah, I like just having more CC on Ultra Prime side, right? Like, you've got the range scaling on Elk and the damage scaling as well coming through in the Jinx. You've got a ton of lockup now for Zeri if she ever tries to go aggressive. And the big thing here as well... Again, no real access to the backline onto Elk, so he should be in a pretty good spot for these fights as long as his front line stays beefy and is able to like kind of set him up for success. The big thing is going to be trying to lock up like Lwx and Gori in these fights for Ultra Prime, which when you've got a Jarvan and a Wukong and even xiaoC on this Nautilus as well, really shouldn't be an issue.
It shouldn't be an issue, but we'll see how it all ends up going. If this series has taught me anything, is to expect the unexpected, and what is optimal is not exactly correct in the eyes of some of these teams. So we will wait and see how both these teams will end this series. Both of them desperate for a win, both of them looking to try and put them up, and for FPX, you need to be keeping yourself relevant. For Ultra Prime, it's about keeping the distance between you and the chasing pack for the playoffs as short and as small as possible. Both these teams need to make this one work. I'll be looking down towards that bot lane. It's where we've seen the most action all day, and I would not be expecting anything different from this game.
Yeah, it really does feel like you're going to see, at least on FPX's side, them trying to invest those tools there. Hacker and ZS, I wouldn't be surprised if they try and make some sort of play up towards the top side early. Burn xiaolaohu's flash, and then as soon as you hit 6 for Wukong, it's just a field day up there.
It is just going to be a field day. We'll see where both these teams end up throwing their resources, and we'll see who ends up being the hero at the end of it all. FPX going to be very, very curious to see how they work around this Jayce. We've seen what xiaolaohu can do on this pick. We've seen what he's able to make happen for himself, the massive CS leads, the 1v1s. He's got to make it happen now, and honestly, ZS going full defensive right now, saying I'm going cloth armor. I know I'm going to lose this lane. He's going to be about 20 CS down, and he recognizes that. He does not care.
Yeah, it's just get to level 6. That's all you have to do is Wukong, and you just instantly kill the Jayce. It is obnoxious. It's such a good matchup for ZS post 6, and it's why now, like, looking at Ultra Prime, you still have the option to play 1-3-1 if you really want, right? Cryin and ZS can do well. Gori on an Orianna does not want to be in a side lane. xiaolaohu just loses to the Wukong. So you can try and continue to put that pressure in the mid game if you want. And then when you actually come towards team fights, right? Like, you can deny vision for FPX, find good flanks for ZS, for Cryin, and kind of just set up your team fights really well. So at least if I am looking at these squads, Ultra Prime for me has the better team because they can just play, or at least composition, because they can play multiple different styles relatively easily. It's just going to be a case of like how well they can actually orchestrate that mid game.
Already ZS saying, look, I need to try and just get the health bar down so we can at least get some CS. We've seen this many, many times from the Wukong, as we now see hook down on the bot side. Lwx will get stunned up, but here's Hong. Straight up, I actually saw, just wanted to mention it very, very quickly. We actually saw a lot of respect from FPX. They thought Ultra Prime were going for the full invade on the red. So Clid very late at starting his red, only getting it now. As we can see, basically a camp ahead for the jungler of Ultra Prime. But with the presence they have now on the spot side, Clid trying to make that one work for them. They're going to go in on top of Elk as they get down the glacial augments. They're going to see the heal coming in, the flash away by Clid as he tries to jump straight in onto this Jinx. It's going to be all too easy for Clid. He took a little bit of his time, but he gets himself the first blood. The level 2 gank is just too good.
Yeah, we'll have to see what the answer is going to be from Hacker, though, because yes, you end up getting that kill, but Clid now needs to reset, only has one camp to his name, and Hacker will have full control over the jungle, maybe looking to get into this top side, but at least for a nice job for Clid, right, getting this early kill for himself and setting up Lwx and Hong in that bottom lane.
Well, seeing already in the top side, ZS being bullied out by xiaolaohu. Again, to be expected. Not really expecting much else from this matchup. And yeah, we're seeing now immediately Clid roaming back up towards his top side, recognizing he just needs to try and get as many of these buffs as he possibly can. It is going to be Hacker ahead, very much so on the camp rotation, but can they make anything else happen from it? Gori might be in a little bit of trouble, so needs to be very careful. Flash in with the flag and drag. They're going to get him down with the rune prison. It's a nice little setup. Hacker responds in kind. Both junglers very aggressive and very proactive in this early game.
Yeah, Gori did not need to be positioned on that top side. They knew, or at least maybe they didn't, I suppose. They may not have known that Hacker started on this bottom side. Positioning up towards the top side gives an easy setup there for Cryin, and now Cryin will get a good reset off. He'll be able to move back into lane, and it also means that if you're looking at a level 6 play, a ton of control for Cryin when he wants to look for these realm warps.
And we can see already just the Clid recognizing now the Jarvan did path towards that bot side, so maybe going to try and take away these Krugs and put a little bit of pressure onto ZS. I will say, very difficult to dive a Wukong, especially with that decoy, so needs to be a little bit careful if he does decide to go for it. And we'll know now that there is no TP available for the Ryze, and the decoy is down, so maybe could go for something here, but I think Clid's just happy enough to take the farm.
Yeah, you can see the oh, ZS actually stops this. This is dangerous now.
This is very dangerous. ZS recognizes it. I think he's just going to try and walk away. He does have himself the decoy. Should be back off of cooldown now. Yep, there it is. 1 second there it was away, and now should be able to walk himself out of this one here. Was a little bit risky there for a second, but ZS now still in a little bit of a precarious position. Going to lose a lot of experience, and that's the big thing here, is experience on the Wukong. You mentioned how he needs that level 6, but if the Jayce can keep him as far away from it as possible, his matchup just becomes so dire for the Monkey.
At least there with Hacker coming up, ZS should pick up the majority of this farm underneath the turret, so it won't be the end of the world, but you can see, yeah, very big CS lead opening up for xiaolaohu on that top side. Plus the first strike gold going to be giving him a nice little boon there, as you can see, about a 400 gold lead for xiaolaohu. But again, I'm curious to see what happens at this 6. It feels like, at least if Hacker wants to, that path can lead him straight back up the top side as he looks for a reset here. And maybe that's where they're going to try and make the play, because I think in about a wave and a half, 2 waves, you should see ZS getting that level 6 and being able to set up for a play topside.
Well, Dragon has spawned. They will spot Clid on this ward, so they know exactly where he is. Hacker will be going towards him. The hook will not land by xiaoC. We do see the headbutt pulverize combination here from Hong. Both these AD carries happy enough with the trade. It is still very much in favor of Ultra Prime, as they get a lot of xiaoC's health bar out of him. Now, where do you go here? We can see now Cryin with the Realm Warp. He may look to try and make something happen here on the bot side. No flash or level 6 for either of the supports. Excuse me, I say that. Hong only be one without his flash, but it's just going to be the Dragon here for Ultra Prime. So using that early pressure in the mid lane to get themselves that early objective.
Yeah, only the level 1 smite though. They haven't got that upgraded, so you need to get this low before you can do it. A Hacker.
Oh, Hacker, he didn't want to use the smite. He actually didn't even have smite. I just looked at it there. The cooldown wasn't there, and that's why you need to make sure you have that cooldown before you go for these fights. Speaking of these fights, we're going to see now Hong going in, has the shockwave, got to land it down on the xiaoC, and Lwx picks up a kill. Ultra Prime, what are you doing?
Good question. I don't have an answer for you, but here we go, level 6. This is the problem.
This is the problem. Cyclone goes in, ZS flashes over, gets the knock up, xiaolaohu flashes back, and straight away, like you said, he gets himself his armor boots, and all of a sudden, this top lane matchup's gone very skewed.
And it's just about that first one getting the flash out, right? Because now you know you can pretty handily follow up the next time around. And that 30 CS lead that has opened up to the top side ain't gonna stick around for very long, as xiaolaohu will have to put some manners on himself and stay away from this monkey.
Well, at the end of it all is still a Dragon for FPX. They got a kill as well. No flash available in the top side, as both top laners did end up using that in that last little skirmish. We'll wait to see now where both these teams want to go, but the Zeri working very healthily towards that first mythic item, getting that Triforce down. Already has the Hearthstone Axe and the Sheen. And now we want to see where Ultra Prime want to go, because again, they answered very nicely in that play, but just small little mistakes. Where do you want to see them really pressure? Because they have this Jarvan that can make things happen in the early game.
So FPX are eyeing up the Rift Herald at the moment. I feel like you just kind of gift it at the early stages and look to make a play down on the bottom side instead. Cryin has ult, Gori can't really follow, and with the position that Lwx has with pushing in bot alongside Hong, you're going to end up with a numbers advantage for FPX. xiaoC sitting mid though, just trying to see if they can get this push in for Cryin, and maybe they will look for a play elsewhere.
Both supports now in the mid lane, Clid as well, so soak up a little bit of that XP. Makes his tax. You gotta pay your taxes, man. Get back himself up. Now xiaolaohu starts up the Rift Herald, so Shelly is going to be the point of priority here for the side of FPX, but Hacker, I think he's very close to his Cataclysm right now, so trying to see if he can take away this red buff as quick as he can and then maybe move forward. Yeah, he just pinged it there, so Cataclysm is available now for Hacker should he want to go for something here. Hung is just hovering off to the side. AD carries a little bit late to the party, and Hung caught out. He is going to have to use his pulverize to try and keep himself alive, but he doesn't have his ultimate available to him. They're not able to kill him off. There's a shockwave on the 3. They even get the Crescent Guard down as the Cataclysm comes off, but LWX is here, and you can see L just too slow to the party. It's a double kill for the Zeri in a 5v4 situation. FPX are always going to win.
And especially when you look at the damage dealers that are on their team, right? Like, ZS was still waiting for that ultimate to come up and didn't have push in top side, so xiaolaohu gets there faster, and xiaolaohu has way more damage with the serrated dirk over the monkey. Same when you look at LWX, Zeri just way more damage in these early team fights, and Ultra Prime don't have the fuel in the tank to take it. Now FPX get more kills in their back pocket. The Rift Herald, turret plates for xiaolaohu, and just like that, Ultra Prime 2k behind.
I mean, I know we said that this top lane deficit doesn't mean that much, but when you're pretty much more than double in the top side, that's when this becomes a bit of an issue. You could still be a hard counter and lose this so damn hard if you're able to, you know, get that much of a lead. So ZS really needs to be picking and choosing his battles, as we can see just more and more advantages going towards that bot side. I'm gonna have a look at the pro view here of LWX. Again, look at the map. He knows exactly where the Jinx is. He even pings it and says, look, we can take this fight. Go for it.
Yeah, and I mean, look, Hung taking a lot of damage, but watch how much damage that LWX can do, right? Now he's got the ultimate popped, and he is just shredding through people here. There's just nothing that you're able to actually follow up on here. And again, now 3 kills for this Zeri. The Triforce nearly completed. She's been accelerated, and she's going to be an issue for Ultra Prime, because yes, we talk about the great team fighting for Ultra Prime, but this is a very much a composition that will group up, and with the damage that Zeri can churn out in those like close quarter fights, that's kind of perfect for him.
This is where the game gets a little bit tougher and a little bit ridiculous for the side of Ultra Prime. How do you protect this Jinx? We talked about it in game 1. Similar situation. Who heals for this Jinx when the Zeri's able to get on top of you? The Alistar, the Zhao. There's just so much available to you on the side of FPX to make this one work. As I say that though, Cataclysm down. We are going to see the two skies as xiaolaohu gets him outside of the Demacian Battle Dome, and now will work himself back up towards this turret, maybe making it work for himself. Who are they going to give this kill over? It is going to be ZS, so the Monkey King will get himself back onto the board and get himself a kill at least.
And that's what Ultra Prime needed to do. As you rightly said earlier on, the problem with this matchup is that if you fall too far behind, it won't matter, so you got to help ZS. Now xiaoC getting the answer. Yeah,
getting the answer. xiaoC just kind of finding Clid, but Elk being very much taken away from this farm that he very desperately needs. That's a 3-0-1 Zeri right now as LWX picks up all of these solo farm, all of the solo plates, and just accelerating himself so far forward. Actually has a 1,300 gold lead, and he's still not done with this turret.
And I mean, look, FPX have set themselves up wonderfully in this early game, right? Like, we talk about Ultra Prime having great late game scaling, great team fights once Elk comes online, but FPX have kind of taken that pace away from them, with LWX now monstrously far ahead on this area. And when you've got Clid and Hung being able to move around as this kind of duo unit playing around LWX, you just don't have the damage right now as Ultra Prime to try and answer. So again, we're down this bot side, and I don't even know if Clid has to use the Rift Herald. It looks like LWX is just going to be able to take this by himself.
Yeah, they're going to be able to do this, no issues whatsoever. They actually don't know the Alistar is there. xiaoC now sees big old cow man, but doesn't even have to use the Rift Herald. That means they can use that in mid, they can use it in top, get more gold, accelerate their team further and further ahead. They're now 4,000 gold ahead at the 12-minute mark, and plates are still available.
The only thing is they may not be able to get into a position in time to use that Rift Herald to take more plates, but when you look at like bot tower going down fully, xiaolaohu being able to take 3 turret for itself on top, and even Gori nearly taking one for himself, FPX have just been playing so strong through their lanes. Look at the build for LWX. Triforce completed. Tiamat already as well. God. LWX is huge.
He is disgustingly big, as we can see now. Clid, he's going to have to drop the Rift Herald pretty soon, not just for the plates, but just because he will lose the buff if he doesn't drop it in the next 30 seconds or so. You can see him now moving up towards this top side. They're going to give all that money over to the Zeri. Why not? Keep this Zeri going. Get the Titanic Hydra. Get the Runans as early as you possibly can, and make this as difficult as possible for the side of Ultra Prime.
They're going to get the plates. I mean, you get the charge off in time. As long as LWX is in range here, they're going to be able to get that one for themselves. And now Zeri's so large, my God.
Gold, man. That's a
Like,
that's 2,200 gold lead in the 80 Eri carries alone. We haven't even looked at top side.
It's against everyone on Ultra Prime. Nobody on Ultra Prime is even close to where LWX is, and now they're gonna fight him.
They're going to try and go for him, but Hacker, you're all by yourself. He flashes over the wall after dropping down the Cataclysm. They will get Shelly to get another little knockback as we get the Super Mega Death Rock coming in on top of the Cyclone. But Cryin, in the caught between no man's land, just needs to flash himself away. And yes, you're getting time on bot side for Elk, but you're not gaining anything either. In fact, you might even lose a tier 2. I don't think you can defend this.
You're gonna lose the mid lane anyway. xiaolaohu already making work there, as well as FPX can just move up to try and help him out. So Elk, yes, you take bot turret, but kills going over towards LWX again. That's 7,000 gold already picked up for LWX. xiaolaohu getting this mid lane turret, and LWX, he's not done. He's looking for ZS.
I mean, honestly, ZS needs to be so careful there. LWX was in a position and had a lot of defense and a lot of catch-up with him. Support is probably the word I'm looking for, as Hong maybe thinking about it, doesn't have his unbreakable will, but they are just looking to try and maybe take down this turret just before these minions die, but they think the better of it as there are 3 members of Ultra Prime to defend. So they come back, we reset, everyone's coming back onto the map. But have a look at the replay here, because this is just a massive skirmish that just doesn't really stick for Ultra Prime.
Yeah, LWX did a really good job avoiding the flagging tracks by hopping over the wall there, and then it's just disjointed, right? ZS actually isn't able to follow up on the engage because LWX is too far away. Jinx is on the bottom side of the map, so she's not doing anything, and your only real damage source at that stage is Cryin because ZS is so far behind. Like, Ultra Prime didn't play towards any of their strengths on the map in these early stages. We talked about ZS having this counter matchup. Get Hacker up there, make sure that Wukong doesn't fall behind, but 2, burn the flash on xiaolaohu, so when level 6 gets hit, ZS can make the play. Not seeing that happen. Not playing through Cryin in the mid lane to get this Ryze out and get him access onto the map. And bot side, Elk and xiaoC fall prone to that level 2 gank, and they're just on the back for the whole time. Now FPX have their run of the mill, and you can even see, yes, Ultra Prime are kind of looking at this Rift Arrow going, but Hacker's just the bot side. They're just giving up on trying to contest anything that FPX are doing.
Yeah, it's just not worth it right now. There really is no way they can come back to it. You're still waiting on the Divine Sunderwear for ZS. You haven't got that mythic available to you, and that can be the difference. Hong, seeing if someone is hovering around here. 43 seconds until that dragon spawns. That would put FPX on Dragon Soul points. So, Clid, does he get caught out here? I feel like you don't even want to fight him right now. He has so much survivability with that Gore Drinker, with the Crescent Guard as well. And looking back in towards how these items are building up, you have the Everfrost and the Stopwatch here for Gori. You got yourself some survivability and just straight up burst on the Jayce of xiaolaohu when he's got himself another Serrated Dirk and Caulfield's Warhammer. So this is going to be very difficult to contest if you're Ultra Prime, but honestly, I feel like they have to, because if they don't get this soul point away from FPX, there's no way they can contest the next one. Yeah,
and I mean, look, it's kind of damn if you have known for Ultra Prime, right? Like, you try to play at range, xiaolaohu beats you. Try to play into the engage, LWX beats you. Like, FPX have taken over this early game, and because of that, Ultra Prime, their easy to access win cons aren't there anymore.
ZS, though, gets himself TP'd on the flank here. He may have found himself an opportunity. They're going to be able to jump onto Gori, who's a bit by himself, and they're going to jump straight onto LWX, who gets stunned up and taken down. Massive shutdown there up to the Jarvan, who goes golden. Hacker trying to keep himself alive. The Cyclone is good enough to just delay the inevitable, but you can see these health bars are so low. FPX are just too damn big. Cryin is still trying to make this one work, but he just cannot survive. It was a valiant attempt from Ultra Prime, but they're just too far behind.
Even guessing LWX at the start of that fight, it didn't matter. xiaolaohu is too big, Gori is too large, and Clid is tearing through people on this Xinjiao. Ultra Prime try to go for the fight, but they end up giving more gold towards FPX. Another dragon to FPX, and now with Mountain Soul potentially on the cards in 5 minutes time, Ultra Prime have got to try and find a miracle fight once more. We're going to look at the replay here coming in. ZS gets on towards Gori, but kind of realizes, actually, I need to be trying to get into the rest of this fight. LWX gets soloed out by Hacker, which is nice, but I mean, Elk has already been jumped on by Clid. He's completely out of the fight. Gori gets a gorgeous 2-man shockwave onto Cryin, who's the last member that's really there, and Cryin just ends up in the pit trying to kill Hong, as xiaolaohu has dealt with the rest of the members of Ultra Prime who try to scuttle into their own jungle.
Again, talk about a miracle engage, but that was kind of it. You found the flank. It was just a little bit disjointed. You weren't able to get exactly the one you wanted, but that's as good as it's probably ever going to get for Ultra Prime. And now, 6,000 gold behind, sole point available to FPX. They'll have that available to them for 4 minutes. They can't even go for Baron. They can't even flip it at Baron yet, because it's not up for a minute and a half.
And they can't contest FPX on this push into jungle either. FPX moved as this 4-man unit. LWX would shred them apart in these small corridors. So instead, they've got to back away. So FPX now, they're getting more control. They have the Rift Herald here still as well if they want to try and get onto the tier 2, but I think you go for tier in the mid.
Looking a lot cleaner from FPX now coming into this game. Game 1, they had some issues. Game 2 was very, very scrappy, but Game 3 seems to be just right as they finally get down this tier 2 on the top side. Cryin in a little bit of trouble, is going to be pulverized, knocked up. Maybe they fully commit onto him as Clit is here. The shockwave going to be forcing Cryan's flash out of him. Gori takes about half his health bar out from the turret, but these shock blasts are starting to do some serious work, and you're running out of defenses here, Ultra Prime.
Yeah, Rift Herald in the mid as well, gets the tier 2 and now gets the charge onto the inhibitor. So you got 2 and nearly a third tower off of that quick push from FPX. And this is before you even look at like FPX, some of their champions coming online, right? Like Gori going for the Everfrost here. He's actually not going for the full damage Orianna. Instead, he's going to opt in towards a more like utility style build because he just knows he just needs to set up for LWX, set up for xiaolaohu in these fights, and they're going to be totally fine. It's also a build that kind of comes online a little bit earlier rather than the like Luden's Tempest style build. Or so, I mean, for FPX, they're in the best spot that they could be, and they're just powering home through their strength.
Again, for Ultra Prime, you need a miracle. There's no other way to put it. You need something that gets Elk resets. You get on the back line, you kill off the Zeri and xiaolaohu, to be perfectly honest, at the same time nearly to make this one work for you, because you just... Even in the last fight, we mentioned it, they got the Zeri. The Zeri was not a factor, and they still came out so much more battered and bruised than they were able to dish out. So right now, FPX feeling very, very comfortable coming into this potentially next fight in 2 minutes. But even if they don't need it, because honestly, there's no way you can really defend these towers right now if the poke lands to the side of FPX.
And they're just not in position either. FPX have full control of the jungle, so they can't spot out where they're going. Now, you can assume they're going to go for this, but...
Here we go.
Where's that go?
They're going to go straight behind them as ZS finds himself a little bit of an improvised flank, but they've got a 2-man Hong knocking up people on the backside, and you can see that was it. That was what they wanted to try and do. The shockwave comes out to try and get something back, but there's nothing else for Ultra Prime. They can't do anything about it. They honestly might just lose the game right here, right now.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have a minion wave, and the death timer is 20 seconds, but it does mean that it's Baron for FPX, right? They can run over here. Nobody's going to be up, and if that attempt at engage isn't going the way of Ultra Prime, they certainly won't be able to do so at a Baron either.
Yep, well, Baron going to be started and taken here by the side of FPX. So let's have a look at Ultra Prime. Again, they had to go for something because they're just losing a battle. If they wait any longer, it's just going to be dead anyway.
I mean, it could have been a fight at Dragon, though, which is the part that gets me. Like, you can actually try and, like, find some better setup, but they don't even get onto LWX. LWX is just totally fine to power through here. xiaolaohu, completely untouched. Like, getting on towards Hong and Glid doesn't give you anything in these fights. Like, you need to get onto a core carry, and none of them were picked up. Now, the LWX is the Ruin's Hurricane. He's on full attention. Like, he's just going to shred through people in these fights. You're looking at 3 items picked up for xiaolaohu as well, with the stopwatch and another stopwatch in the back pocket of Gori as well. Like, any chance you had of a fight is just gone with that.
You have to use a teleport from Cryin as well. Recognized he was just a little bit too far forward. They haven't lost their base just yet, but 20 seconds up until that dragon spawns, and Ultra Prime are not really in a position to go for something here. They'll put down a little bit of harassment there on the Hong. TP going to be coming in. That's going to be the Wukong jumping in. So they will have a full complement of people to try and make something work for them here. As you can see, the mid lane, though, is crashing into their inhibitor turret. Good damage here from xiaolaohu to try and just pepper these people down as they just take away the Grump. And Dragon has been started and will be soloed, to be perfectly honest, by LWX. But he has to stop that one now because xiaolaohu has to go golden as he gets jumped on straight away. They will use the Cyclone. That's the Jayce down. They get the Cataclysm to try and delay the rest of the team. But Jarvan is dead. And look at the Zeri. Look at the damage they're able to put down. Even with ZS jumping straight in, there's just nothing he can do. And LWX flashes pushes forward, recognizes that he's stronger than everybody else, gets himself a double kill, and it's not done yet. Triple kill for Lwx, and that's going to be enough to basically end the game. FPX going to run it down in mid lane, finally get the ace, and finally take this series 2-1.
And Elk just couldn't get access to that fight. He was completely zoned off by Lwx, who could have hopped over the wall at him at any point in time. FPX find the fight, find the win. Now, with the push coming through, it feels like they're going to be able to take the game as well. Just waiting on these Baron up creeps to come in, but 10 seconds down, Cryin, 13 on Elk. Could just be 2 inhibitors instead, and a Dragon Soul as Clid will solo that one out.
It's going to take it nice and easy. 50,000 gold lead, just in case you were wondering, as we have a look at the replay here. And like you said, Elk just not able to make any purchase. This is great from xiaoC, but just after that point, look at Elk. He just gets, what, 1 auto attack, maybe 2, and then he has to flash away because of the shockwave. Yeah,
and again, like, he's just being pressured out by Lwx and Gori, right? Like, he can't actually step up here until someone gets onto them, and ZS tries, but, it's kind of to his own demise, and now Elk is forced to run away, and Ultra Prime get out. So even though it was a good engage coming through from Ultra Prime, just Elk's positioning not giving him access to that fight.
xiaoC, we thank you for your service. To delay the minions just a little bit, and that means that we are going to have another reset. Mountain Soul, Baron buff still available for the 10 seconds. It is a 4,000 Baron power play. This game feels all but done at the moment. Feels like there's nothing else you can really do. Unless there's a monumental throw from FPX, it should just be as easy as they like to try and just push in these waves in top lane. They don't even have to take they can take their time with it as well. Sync them up with the mid and bot, and eventually they'll just overwhelm the side of Ultra Prime.
I mean, getting top inhibitor without a fight is just, it says a lot of where Ultra Prime are basically just waiting for a minion line to come in at some stage. ZS is behind, but I mean, FPX are where he's here. He's spotted on the minion.
He's spotted on the minion line, but they're going to jump in, and xiaoC gets taken out. Cataclysm goes down, but he's deleted anyway. They're going to go in with the ultimate Cyclone, trying to do as much work as they possibly can. Cryin and Elk trying to run away, but there's no running from fate. Destiny finds you regardless of what you do, and they're going to be able to try and just end this game. Cryin left on the fountain, Cryin, as he is just not going to be able to do anything else. Clid will not even fall. He has got himself the Crescent Guard, and then the execution onto Kong. Game number 3 goes over to FPX, 2-1. They get themselves up to a 4-3 scoreline.
And I wonder who the MVP is going to be,
I wonder.
Would it be the 10-1-9 Zeri? Maybe that's the play. But yeah, I mean,
like
look,
a stretch.
for FPX playing well around the spot side, we kind of said, look, you had opportunities here as Hacker, as Cryin to get out of lane, influence the map, play through mid, play through top, try and shut down these plays coming in the bot side. But without Ultra Prime kind of moving from their set lanes and having any sort of impact in the early stages, FPX get their comp to the mid game where they're strongest and just decimate Ultra Prime.